And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings in Culver City.
Jay writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. If Oakland had a working police force and a criminal justice system, community service would be a great answer to their trash problem. Of course, you would need to be able to make arrests for crimes, which is difficult. John, do you know the staffing numbers right now at OPD?
Oh, lay it on me.
So the reports say that Oakland needs about 800 officers to police that city correctly. They have 650 on staff, but 100 of them are on some kind of leave. So they have 547 officers.
Good job, Oakland.
And apparently they're losing 7 a month.
I'm surprised it's not higher.
It's a lot of crime now.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Coming up later on in the hour, we're going to check in with Assembly Republican leader James Gallagher, who is the one that's floating the idea that maybe we should split the state in two, where coastal California is one state and inland California is another state. He represents a part of California that would lose all of their power and influence in Washington if Gavin Newsom were to get away with his crooked map redraw. And speaking of which, that is a topic of conversation. The Constitution says the state legislatures get to draw the congressional lines. In California, we voted to allow an independent commission to draw those lines because the politicians used their authority to draw lines that benefited themselves, and that was regarded as corruption. Now, Gavin Newsom wants to get rid of the commission's lines, and he wants the legislature to be able to redraw them, something that we regard as corrupt. Well, the legislature didn't really get to redraw the lines. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee did. They hired a consultant who did it on their behalf. But in order to get the state legislature to sign off on those lines, they needed to throw something in. So what did they do? They drew a congressional district that would be just about perfect for the president pro tem of the Senate, Mike McGuire. He's the prune farmer.
There has been some hogwash.
And they also drew one up for the Assembly Speaker, Robert Rivas. Both of those districts would be heavily Democratic districts, and both of those districts would theoretically be safe districts for these two politicians for the rest of their careers. This is the reason why voters chose to take that power away from the legislature and give it to an independent commission, so things like this didn't happen. But now we're back to the future. And if you ask about the ethics of these two men, well, KCRA's Ashley Zavala has an update on the Assembly Speaker, Robert Rivas.
You remember how a few weeks ago we reported that Robert Rivas abruptly had fired his press secretary?
Oh, yes.
Well, now she's coming out with a lawsuit saying she was retaliated against for blowing the whistle on corrupt dealings with Rivas and his brother.
And this is the guy who is going to benefit from Prop 50.
This kid is not ready for prime time.
Every time he does a press conference, he looks like he's a kid doing an oral book report who didn't read the book.
And I know what that's like.
And usually they have to chase him down because he doesn't even want to talk to the press. He hides from them, runs from them. Isn't he even redoing the Capitol so they have a secret hallway they can use where they can avoid the press?
It's pretty much the Zavala hallway. For more on the new allegations from Robert Rivas' ex-press secretary, here is KCRA 3 and Ashley Zavala.
KCRA 3 has learned exclusively State Assembly Speaker Robert Rivas is now getting sued, accused of retaliating against his former press secretary.
According to the lawsuit, Rivas stripped.
Remember, it was kind of weird where it was alleged that his press secretary was sexually harassing everyone in his office.
Oh, yeah. They decided to throw her under the bus. And you knew the moment you saw that she had something on him.
According to the lawsuit, Rivas stripped his ex-press secretary of her duties and eventually fired her after she reported accusations of unethical and illegal conduct. Cynthia Moreno, Rivas's former press secretary, filed the lawsuit against Rivas, his brother Rick Rivas, and the state assembly. It claims the Rivas brothers constantly crossed boundaries to carry out illegal and unethical political acts.
Boy, that sounds as California as you can imagine.
So the brother is a big power player in Sacramento. He's in the third house, where you have the assembly, you have the Senate, then you have the lobbyists. That's regarded as the third house. And this guy is a big player in Sacramento. If you need something done from state government, you go to his brother. And it just so happens that his brother, or that this guy, is related to the Speaker of the Assembly. This guy was also instrumental in getting his brother elected to office in the first place. It's kind of the family business.
Anytime politics is the family business, it's not a good family. Are there any dynasties in California politics that we can look at as a good example?
Let's see. We got the Browns. We got the Hans.
Garcettis.
They haven't done us well.
How about the Calderons?
Calderons. How many of them are in jail?
She also claims Speaker Rivas misused public campaign staffers and used public funds for campaign-related press conferences. According to the lawsuit, after Moreno complained to the legislature's workplace conduct unit in February.
You think that unit is out there to protect you?
No, that unit is out there to protect the speaker. If there's something illegally going on in your boss's office and you work for the state government, if you go through the proper channels, they're going to ruin your life.
Yeah, as soon as you're ready to blow the whistle, you have to get representation. You have to get your own attorney because whether it's some big corporation or the California government, their HR is not out to protect you. It's out to protect them.
Yeah, it's just like what we deal with the Public Utilities Commission here. If you think that commission is out there to protect consumers and ratepayers, you're wrong. They're there to protect the utilities. That's how that works. You think Ricardo Lara exists to protect consumers or the insurance companies?
I'm very kind of sketchy.
Oh, we heard.
February, Rivas denied her a pay raise. Moreno was abruptly fired last month after being accused of sexual harassment. She had served as his press secretary since 2020.
Okay, here's the deal. Whenever there's an allegation of sexual harassment, if there's anything to it, what they do is they give you the details right away because the details are usually totally outrageous. When Bob Filner was the mayor of San Diego, and he was grabbing the breasts of every woman who worked at City Hall, that was the story. He'd shake your hand, and then he'd shake something else. And then he'd say, this reminds me, I need to swing by the supermarket and pick up a quart of milk on the way home.
Boy, there's just a lot of stories like that about San Diego local government.
But they always lead with the details. It's like whenever someone promises you a big reveal. Whenever Geraldo Rivera says, we've got great stuff in Al Capone's vault, tune in tonight at 9 and we'll show you, that means there's nothing there. Because if there was something there, they would lead with that. It wouldn't be a tease so that you tune in at 9. The tease is so that even if there's a letdown, they make money and they do okay. The way it works when you're a broadcaster, and we're giving away the secrets here, Randy, is you start the show with your best material. You think on Meet the Press, if they have the vice president booked and they have some congressman from North Dakota, they're going to lead with the congressman from North Dakota? You lead with the vice president. You lead with whatever the best thing is you have. And then after that segment, you tease and tease and tease to get them to listen to you or watch you the rest of the show. But you start with the best and you end with the worst. That's how it works in this business. If you have it, you produce it. The fact that they just said sexual harassment and they left all of the smoke and they left all of the mirrors still there without saying, and this is what she did. She was out there grabbing everyone's private parts. She was out there sending graphic text messages. She was out there demanding sex for favors. Whatever.
You'd have some staffer of Robert Rivas's appear with Gloria Allred and say, she pinched my ass.
Yes, that's how it works. Because sexual harassment is a very broad term. Sexual harassment could be, she told someone, how you're dressed is inappropriate. Dress a little more professional. That could be regarded by people who are very sensitive as sexual harassment. The definition to different people means different things. And when you deal in particular with young people who believe that everything is offensive, then what they consider to be sexual harassment may not be what the rest of the world considers to be sexual harassment. So my guess is he found a way to manufacture something to get this woman out of his office. If he had something on her, that would have been in the headline.
Do you think I can isolate the last minute of the show and just send that to HR the next time that we have to do one of those seminars? We know the subject material.
Yes, we do.
She had served as his press secretary since 2023. In a rare move, Rivas's Assembly Rules Committee released heavily redacted records surrounding the allegation to the public.
Why would you need to redact it?
Yeah, you redact it because there's nothing there. If you're trying to get someone on sexual harassment, what you do is you sensationalize it. You make it as graphic and as sexual as possible.
Moreno said it was a move meant to slander her name. A spokesperson for Speaker Rivas responded to the lawsuit tonight after being contacted by KCRA3, saying in part, quote, the investigation into Ms. Moreno's actions and the decision to terminate her was handled entirely by the Independent Workplace Conduct Unit. Adding, Ms. Moreno's long history of lawsuits speaks for itself, and any court will see this for what it is, an attempt by a former employee to force a payout.
Yeah, this isn't going to go well.
No, it's not.
Especially because now she feels that she's been wronged, and I don't know if there is a payout here. She might want revenge. She might want to end this jackass's political career.
I remember the first time I read a news report about the brother and the speaker and the game that they're playing in Sacramento. And I remember saying to myself, how in the world is this allowed? Where you have one brother on one side of the fence and you have the other brother on the other side of the fence. If you want something from the speaker, you have to go through the brother. How does that not end up with favors for the speaker that the speaker shouldn't be getting?
Well, it's starting to make a whole lot more sense how this guy became speaker to begin with. Remember when he was trying to push out one of the Tonys?
Oh, yeah. He was trying to push out Tony Rendon.
A lot to unpack here. We have much more on this exclusive report on KCRA.com, including more about Speaker Rivas's brother and his connection to all of this. You can look for the story at KCRA.com or the KCRA app.
So there is the latest on Robert Rivas's fired press secretary firing back, filing a lawsuit claiming retaliation because she was going to blow the whistle on his corrupt dealings with his lobbyist brother.
Here's a question, and I know the answer. The answer is ego. The answer is people want to constantly move up the food chain. But just from the point of view of making the cash register ring at the family business, if you're Rivas, why would you want to give up being Speaker of the Assembly when your brother is like the top lobbyist in town to go be a backbencher congressman? Can't you extract more money doing what you're doing now than going and voting on bills and not serving on any important committees, not being chairman of any important committees, not being someone that people pay attention to? Wouldn't you be better off just staying there?
Well, I got two theories. One, maybe he thought that everyone was catching up to him and it's time to jump ship. Or two, maybe there's even more opportunities for corruption once you're a member of Congress.
I guess the brother could move to D.C. and just do what he's doing there, and you could play the same game. That's possible. Or you install someone to replace you as Speaker who is loyal to you, and that person and your brother play the same game that you played.
I mean, you get to Congress, You got the opportunity to make that Pelosi money.
Quite frankly.
The difference is, though, in Sacramento, it's Ashley Zavala that covers these stories. No one else is really doing what she's doing. So you have almost complete anonymity in Sacramento. And is California a state? Yes. Is the federal government much bigger? Yes. But California, as Gavin Newsom likes to remind us every 20 seconds, is about the size of Japan. If you were running the Japanese parliament and you had a side hustle going on that was very profitable for you and your family, that should be good enough. Japan's a big country. They do a lot of business. They have a huge GDP. Why would you give that up for something where I guess you're going to do okay? You're a member of Congress, and it's a safe seat, so you're going to have it the rest of your life. But part of the reason that Nancy Pelosi does so well, and she buys the stocks that she buys, is because she's someone with influence. She's the former speaker. Even though she's not speaker anymore, all of those people that run all of those committees are there because of her. So the information pipeline all goes through her. There's nothing that goes on in that town that she doesn't know about before it happens. If you're a backbencher who nobody knows, you're not in the information loop the way that Nancy Pelosi is. I don't know. Interesting story. And this guy could become a liability in Prop 50 because there was a payout to him to get that put on the ballot. He extracted a congressional seat, 2 congressional seats actually, one for him and one for McGuire. And if his corruption is suddenly going to be in the newspaper at the same time that this corrupt initiative is on the ballot, he could drag the whole thing down. Time will tell. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're keeping an eye on the mailbag.
Okay, this is great. Ryan emailed us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com with a very interesting throwback question. Hey, Randy, does Oakland still have to deal with whistle tips? And then he sent me a link to a Cron 4 story from 14 years ago when people were modifying their cars with whistle tips to make them extra annoying. What's a whistle tip? Well, here's a clip that I forgot existed.
Tell me about the whistles.
The whistles got woo!
Anybody that has it in their neighborhood's going to be totally driven crazy.
It sounds like what? When you want to woo woo, it's that woo woo.
That's like 14 years old, and it's fantastic. And it makes me wish we were on in the Bay back then.
I'm sure we would have had fun with that. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is the Assembly Republican leader representing much of Northern California in the California Assembly. You can follow him on X at J_Gallagher 83. Assembly Leader James Gallagher, welcome.
John, good to be with you again.
I'd like to get you to weigh in on the breaking news involving a former top aide to the Speaker of the Assembly who is now out with a lawsuit saying that she was retaliated against by the Assembly Speaker. He claims that she was fired for cause due to sexually harassing a number of people in his office. However, the documents that he released were heavily redacted, and he really couldn't tell what it was that he was even alleging. She's saying she didn't sexually harass anyone, that she exposed corruption going on at the Capitol between the Assembly Speaker and his brother, who is a member of the Third House up there, a very influential member of the Third House up there, and that she was retaliated against by the Speaker for doing that. He, of course, is one of the big beneficiaries of Prop 50, should that pass, where he was able to extract 2 congressional districts from the DCCC in exchange for putting that on the ballot, one for him and one for Mike McGuire, who's the Democratic leader of the Senate. What do you make of what's going on with these allegations, and would an aura of corruption potentially damage the chances of Prop 50, given the fact that he was the one they had to go through to get it on the ballot.
Yeah, well, I mean, Prop 50 already has an aura of corruption all around it just on how they went about doing this. And, couldn't even tell us who drew the maps, but, this adds another layer, to it. And these are very interesting allegations. As you laid out, I mean, we first had this, like, all of a sudden, firing of a press secretary that was a very weird story in itself. And as you said, redacted documents that were released about some investigation that had been done on her. And then now just yesterday, these allegations where she's saying there was retaliation involved, some very serious allegations, that she's alleging. And I think the public does, they deserve to know what really happened here. Obviously, a lot of this is just going to get hashed out in court. This is a court case that's been filed, and every allegation has to be proven. And all people are, not guilty until they're proven guilty, right? But serious allegations nonetheless. And there's already a lot of stink around this whole Prop 50 redistricting effort that goes against the Constitution, against the will of the voters. Was passed through, and it looks like politicians had districts drawn for them that helped favor their chances to get elected. And the worst thing for, an area like mine in Northern California is that we are being stripped of all of our congressional representation under these new maps. We would be represented by Bay Area representatives instead of folks of our choosing, such as Kevin Kiley and Doug LaMalfa.
What kind of resentment exists right now in your district among your constituents that already, when you look at statewide elections, for example, counties like Los Angeles and San Francisco, Alameda counties, they drowned out your counties at the statewide level in virtually all of those constitutional statewide office races. What you do have is you have representation at the level of the legislature, where you have your own districts, you have your own members, right. You have the ability, if you have an issue with the VA or you have an issue with the Social Security Department, whatever, there's someone in your community that you can call that can work it out for you. That would be taken away from them. So they would no longer have a voice statewide, and they would no longer have a voice in terms of the legislature. What kind of resentment will exist if this passes in those areas?
Yeah, huge. And I like to point this out. I mean, so much was made of Texas, right? And, we have to do this because Texas is redistricting. Right now, Texas, out of their congressional delegation, 30% of them are Democrats. So they're in the minority, but they have 30%. Here in California, it's 17%. Of our congressional delegation are Republicans, right? So they're actually a lot better at representing the minority party. And in both states, statewide, the minority party gets about 40% of the vote. With this redistricting proposal, we'd go down to 7% representatives that are Republican in the state, even though we get 40% of the vote statewide. I mean, this is crazy. And by the way, Democrats have already been doing this in other states. States like Massachusetts and Connecticut, where there are zero Republican representatives in their congressional delegations, despite, again, Republicans getting close to 38, 40% of the vote in those states. So the truth is Democrats are a lot better at gerrymandering than Republicans are. And what they're doing here in California would be a complete atrocity, strip people of their rights to representation. And, it has a lot of people angry and frustrated. And for a long time in my area, and I think many parts of California, they feel like they have no way to get their voice across and have any kind of influence on their government. They're completely overpowered by the urban sectors, Bay Area and Los Angeles.
Gavin Newsom, according to Politico, originally started out by talking to the Democratic delegation in Congress, by talking them into a bluff. I will threaten to do this. We won't actually do it, but I'll threaten to do this, and I think it'll strengthen our hand of cards. And then he travels around the country going on all these podcasts where he starts talking like a tough guy in a bar and boxes them into a corner where they have no choice but to move forward with this, which is not what he told them he was going to do. Now they're in and they're stuck. They can't really go anywhere. They can't back down now, or it'll be a bad look for them. It's definitely going on the ballot. But the way I see it is there's essentially three most likely outcomes here, and I don't see how any of them benefit Gavin Newsom. One is the voters vote down Prop 50. If the voters vote down Prop 50, then Gavin Newsom loses at the ballot box the same way he did with Prop 36, and he looks weak, and he looks like an ineffective leader, someone who can't even get an initiative passed in his own state. Right now, Charlie Munger has put up $20 million to fight Prop 50. Others are raising money to fight Prop 50. Arnold Schwarzenegger, who recent polls say is still very popular with independents, moderate Democrats, and other interest groups in California, says he is going to travel up and down the state debating the merits of Prop 50, saying that, or the problems of Prop 50. Gavin Newsom says he will not debate Arnold Schwarzenegger. He won't appear in the same places as Arnold Schwarzenegger, in part because Arnold is a lot more popular than him right now.
He'd be terminated.
He would be. So that's number one. Number one scenario is it loses at the ballot box. Number two is it passes, but there's no guarantee they're going to pick up 5 seats. Kevin Kiley says he will run for re-election regardless of what happens in a seat that is not a seat that favors Republicans, but that's winnable. Darrell Ice's seat in San Diego County is not a seat that favors Republicans, but for a rich guy who's a longtime member of Congress with high name ID, it's definitely winnable for him. So scenario number 2 is they pick up 3 seats, they go through all of this, and that's all they get. That's all the juice they get out of the squeeze. Scenario number 3 is that they pick up the 5 seats and they spend a fortune to get this thing through, and they motivate not just Texas, but Florida, Indiana, Missouri, other states to do the same thing, and the net loss for the Democrats is greater than what it would have been had the state of California not jumped in. I don't see where Newsom wins in any of these 3 scenarios.
Yeah, as usual, John, your analysis is exactly where I'm at. It's spot on. I mean, I think this is going to be a disaster, for Gavin Newsom and the Democrats, and I don't think they realize how bad it is just yet. And because, as you pointed out, I think we have a very good shot to stop this on the ballot. And I keep telling people all the time, hey, if we stop this, we stop Gavin Newsom. We stop him in his tracks. This is very unpopular with independents. We know that Californians overwhelmingly support independent citizen redistricting, fair elections. And I think our base is really motivated to turn out in this election. And so I think with all those things, we have a very good shot to stop it. If we stop it, obviously that's a great win for the people of California, but also a win for the nation in shutting down Gavin Newsom. But I also agree with you that, because Gavin keeps talking about your scenario 3, Gavin talks about fighting fire with fire. Well, what happens when you fight fire with fire is you get burned. And right now, because the Democrats have already massively gerrymandered their blue states, they don't have a whole lot to really come up with in terms of getting new seats. But Republican states, where they've actually been more fair, actually do have the ability to redistrict and get even more numbers. And I think that very well could be the case. I mean, they could pick up, I've heard some estimates, 17, 18 seats for Republicans, just by their states fighting back and doing redistricting of their own. So, not a very good move by Gavin Newsom. But again, this guy hasn't had the best judgment and best governing skill, as we know.
You have floated the idea of splitting the state in 2, not north-south, but east-west. Coastal California being put in one state, and then inland California being put in another state. Gavin Newsom, as usual, responded in a very dramatic way, where he said that you aren't fit to serve an elected office in the state of California. So I don't know if that means he wants you expelled from the legislature or what. What do you make of Gavin Newsom's response?
Well, I mean, it sort of makes the point for me, doesn't it? Here's a guy who's, I've been elected 6 times, by my constituents. overwhelmingly. They love what I'm doing because I represent their views and in my area very well, But Gavin Newsom is saying that I shouldn't even be able to hold office because I disagree with what he's doing, and I'm actually trying to take action accordingly. That's the kind of thing that's why we're doing this. I don't take this lightly. I really don't. But if we are going to be in a place where my representation gets completely stripped away, where we're dealing with a dictator governor who's undermining the Constitution, undermining the will of the voters, and stripping me and my constituents of our right to representation, then, yeah, we want a new state. We want a state where we actually have control over our own destiny, where we have real representation, a real voice in the process. And you know what? I don't think that we're alone in Northern California. Actually, I think a lot of people in the Central Valley and the Inland Empire, in many parts of the state feel completely overlooked, neglected, and they don't feel like this government is responsive to them at all. What's the number one issue in California? It's cost of living. It's how do I pay the enormous bills? That's the number one issue. But has this legislature done a thing to lower your gas prices or your utility bills or insurance costs? No, not a one thing, right? In fact, they've made it worse. So I think there's a lot of people who want something better. And so I put this out here as a proposal. It's something we can do under the Constitution. You can form a new state. To me, the breakdown is really inland versus coastal. And so that's why I put this out here, largely in response to Gavin Newsom's Prop 50 and the terrible situation that we find ourselves in with this, undermining of the voters.
Do you think, if successful, this is foreshadowing what they're going to try to do during the next census? Because there's a lot of focus on what happened in terms of the outward migration of people leaving California to other states. But within the state of California, we've seen a lot of people moving from those population centers in L.A. and the Bay Area to the Central Valley, the Inland Empire, Orange County. Your part of the state, I'm sure, has seen an increase in population. And if they were to redraw the lines of the state legislature in a fair way, you would see L.A. County losing seats, the Bay Area losing seats, and areas like yours gaining seats. I can't imagine they will allow that to happen. Do you think this is an indication in terms of where they're headed for the next redrawing of the lines?
Yeah, I think Gavin Newsom and the Democrats are deathly afraid of the people because they saw in this last election there was some really big shifts, especially among Latino voters, especially among inland California voters. We picked up 2 seats in the Inland Empire this last election cycle alone. I think they see that writing on the wall, and I think they fear losing their power, right? And I think that is largely why they pushed this thing. Again, with 3 days' notice, when normally you'd have 30, when normally you would have an election after 180 days. Instead, they're trying to fast-track this and do it in 70. All these things that they've done, to subvert the process is all about keeping power. And again, this election really is going to be about politicians versus the people. And I really believe that the people can win this one, can fight back, and finally say, hey, enough is enough. We don't like what Gavin Newsom and the supermajority have done. In fact, they've made things worse for us, and we want a better way.
How much money do you think the no side is going to have to raise to win?
Millions of dollars, right? Now, fortunately, we already have people that are weighing in on that. Obviously, Charles Munger, as you mentioned, is all in to stop this because he helped create, the first independent redistricting commission. And so he's all in to stop this thing. Kevin McCarthy is committed to raising money for this effort as well, has an organization already set up that's running ads. And I think people see a lot is at stake here. Again, this is the politicians versus the people. Arnold Schwarzenegger is getting out there. I think he had his T-shirt on the other day that said "Terminate the politicians," right? So he's all in. And look, I think that temperature and the tenor of this is really moving in the favor of the no side. Certainly, Gavin Newsom and they will spend a lot of money trying to pass this, and they'll lie to you and tell you that it's just that they're retaining the Citizens Commission. We've already seen the ballot title and summary, which is a total lie. They're trying to subvert independent redistricting, but they use the word retain it. Hey, we're only going to do this temporarily, which is the next 3 cycles where you will not have representation that you deserve. So they're going to spend millions as well. But I think at the end of the day, the California voters are going to be with the no side.
Assembly Republican leader James Gallagher, representing California's 3rd District in the Assembly. You can follow him on X at J_Gallagher AD3. Assembly Leader Gallagher, well, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Thank you, John.
We've got one more hour coming up on the John Phillips Show. When we return, we're going to open up that California crime blotter. Don't you go anywhere.